All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lenia. Thank you for those who have tuned in to watch today's Facebook Live on the topic of immunity, building immunity. So, it's an honor to have been invited to be today's guest speaker, and I'm pretty excited to give you guys the information that I have found for today's topic. So I am, once again, my name is Lenia, and I'm a dietetic intern at Jackson North Medical Center. My background is in nutrition. I have a bachelor's and a master's, and I went to Florida International University. So the objective for today's presentation is to discuss factors that can affect immunity. And just a quick brief overview of the immune system. Some of the components include the white blood cells, the thymus, the spleen, the lymph nodes, the lymph channels, and its basic function is to protect our bodies from infections and diseases. So bacteria, viruses, parasites, tumors even. And it does this in 4 general steps. So the first being the physical barrier. So our skin does a pretty good job with keeping microbes and pathogens out of our bodies. And in the event that any of those microbes do enter our body, our immune system will distinguish between harmful and not harmful. So it determines whether something that has entered our body is going to be harmful to us. Once it has determined that this is something that we do not want, it becomes activated and it works to destroy the pathogens with the immune cells. And once that occurs, we acquire what is called immunological memory. So the next time that these same pathogens come in contact with our bodies, it's much more efficient with eliminating it. So there are a couple of factors that affect and influence our immunity. As you can see in this picture, there are several. I'm not going to go over all of these in the presentation, but I think it's important to point out that there are just a lot of things that influence our immune response. And unfortunately, some of these things, like genetics, are not within our control, and others are. So 4 of those that I will be going over today include nutrition, physical activity, maintaining a healthy weight status, and smoking. So our first factor is nutrition. And as we have all heard most likely before, eating well and getting enough nutrients is very necessary for our cells to be able to do their jobs. And this includes immune cells. So when we're sick, our immune system, like I mentioned, becomes activated. And this requires then more energy for the immune system to work properly. And how exactly does nutrition play a role in immune support? It goes further than just the vitamins and the minerals that we most likely think of. So our diet is important because it's able to provide the energy for the immune system to work properly. As I just mentioned, those needs go up, the energy requirements go up once we do get sick and infected. So we also get the necessary amino acids to produce the proteins. So some of these include antibodies, the receptors, and these are things that are part of the immune system that we do need in the event of infection. So our diet also provides certain substrates that are necessary for our body to make the metabolites that become active in the immune system. Perfect example is arginine, which is an amino acid. It acts as a substrate for nitric oxide. So our diet also provides nutrients that are involved in the metabolism of cells in the immune system. So some of these include vitamin A and zinc, and nutrients that have antimicrobial properties, so they're antiviral, antibacterial. We also get from the diet, and this includes vitamin D and zinc. These 2 nutrients have been shown to have these properties. And also certain regulators that have protective properties from oxidative stress, so our antioxidants, and inflammatory stress. So we do get this from the diet as well. So this includes things like vitamin C, zinc, vitamin E, selenium, and our omega-3 fatty acids. So a few more words on nutrition. There are specific nutrients that have been well studied and in relation to immunity. So one of them being vitamin D. There are several studies that have found that those who are deficient in vitamin D, this affects the flu. When they do receive the flu vaccine, this affects how well the vaccine works. Several other studies have found a link between supplementation and a lower rate of respiratory tract infections. Vitamin D and COVID-19 has also been studied, and there has been a link found between being deficient in vitamin D and a higher risk of COVID-19 complications, and this includes mortality. Another nutrient is zinc, and the literature has been able to show that zinc does mitigate coronavirus replication, so it does slow it down. So the link between zinc status and zinc intake and COVID-19 severity has been established. Zinc has also been found to improve the effectiveness of some vaccines and reduce respiratory tract infections. And finally, selenium. Also, several studies have been done. The literature has been able to show that there is an inverse relationship between selenium status and COVID-19 severity. So this basically means that the higher your selenium status, the more selenium you have in your stores, the less severe your COVID-19 infection and complications are. So a couple of food sources for some of these nutrients I mentioned. Vitamin A, you can find these in eggs, milk, mangoes, and carrots. Some sources for vitamin C include citrus fruits, so your oranges, your limes, tangerines, tomatoes, potatoes. Vitamin D dietary sources, unfortunately, are very limited, but some of them do include fatty fish and fortified milk products, so your cheese and your yogurts. And vitamin E, you can find those in peanuts, broccoli, and spinach. Selenium, some of these dietary sources, you have your Brazil nuts, your chicken, your eggs, your tuna. For zinc, the best sources of zinc are animal products, but you can find them in oysters, beef, cereals that are fortified with zinc, and pumpkin seeds. And our omega-3 fatty acids, so fatty fish, salmon, tuna, chia seeds, and walnuts. Moving on to our next factor, physical activity is also a factor in immunity, excuse me. Again, there are several studies that have been done, and it has been found that those who exercise regularly are 31% less likely to get sick from infectious diseases. And once they do become sick, they are 37% less likely to die from that disease. Physical activity does increase some of the immune-related cells. So these include your CD4 cell count, your salivary immunoglobulin IgA concentration, and physical activity has also been found to decrease the neutrophil count. And this is compared to individuals who do not exercise regularly. And individuals who do incorporate some sort of physical activity in their daily routine have been found to have higher concentrations of antibodies after they get vaccinated. So healthy weight maintenance. Immunity has been found to decrease as weight increases, so an inverse relationship. So obesity does weaken the immune cell function, including the helper T cells, the cytotoxic T cells, B cells, and natural killer cells. And antibody production has been found to also be lower in those who are obese. So studies have shown that individuals with a healthy weight have a higher production of immune system response cells in comparison to those who are overweight and obese. And this is a study that was done involving the flu vaccine and the flu virus. So they compared individuals who were of healthy weight and obese individuals who had the vaccine and the virus, the flu virus. Also, obese individuals have been found to be more prone to infections and decreased response efficacy for certain vaccines compared to individuals with a healthy weight. So vaccinated obese individuals were twice as likely to get sick with the flu, according to these studies. And individuals who were obese, once they were sick and they had the infection did last longer. So an association between obesity and inflammatory mediator concentrations increases, or excuse me, it provides it gives you a state of low-grade chronic inflammation. So this is important to understand because being in a low-grade chronic inflammation state, it predisposes one to significant inflammatory response with infections, and this leads to a higher risk of undesirable consequences once the individuals do become infected. And it has been well documented that obese individuals are more prone to severe COVID complications, and this includes mortality rates in comparison to those with a healthy weight. So smoking is another factor involved in immune response. And several studies have also been done on this. And COVID-19 complications, there is a link between that and smoking status. So those who actively smoke have an increased infection and the severity becomes an increased severity and mortality with COVID-19. So the proposed mechanism of action for this is that as the number of active smoking increases the number of angiotensin converting enzyme 2. This is short, ACE2 for short. So these receptors are found to be the host receptor for the COVID-19 virus. So once ACE2 receptors increase due to smoking, this increases the way that the virus gets into our cells. And this interferes with the cytokine balance, and it leads to worse outcomes in patients who are infected with COVID-19. So as I mentioned, there are several factors, key takeaway points. There are several factors that are involved in immunity, and the list is very long, but it's important to keep in mind that it's important to take care of our bodies and to make sure that we pay attention to these factors that do influence our immune system so that we can mitigate our infections and we don't have a prolonged infections once we do become infected. So that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much.